Hi Archers! In this video, I'll be guiding you through the best setup for Endless Mode to try and reach the highest level you can. I'll be going through an all-new ability tier list for Endless Mode, the abilities offered by the wizard, recommended heroes and gear, and just some general tips throughout the video. My name is Teeds, feel free to subscribe and click the bell for more Archero videos. Disclaimer, this is based on my experience, research, and opinion. You may not agree with me, and that's okay. Adjust to your individual playstyle and situation. I've played this mode every single time it was up and have bought the extra gem runs as well. Tested every hero, tested abilities and gear combinations. This is what I found to work the best. First, the best abilities. Because this is not your traditional 50 level cap chapter, the abilities for Endless Mode are rather different. You can reach really high levels as long as you survive. At the moment though, it is the normal level 10 max abilities, so you will be relying a lot on the wizard that pops up, the devil, and the wheel. Abilities can change depending on what weapon you're using. The devil is something we'll come by a lot in this mode. If you don't have enough health to swap for an ability with the devil, then I do recommend taking damage so you can have the wheel instead, where you might get an ability. So, for always pick up, extra life, multi-shot, ricochet, this ability is super important in Endless Mode, especially because you'll start going against a lot of the double bosses. However, it does not do anything against single boss levels, which is really unfortunate. Then we have Rage, Front Arrow. However, with Front Arrow, you may avoid this if you're using the staff weapon if you're going for the diagonal arrow build. Bloodthirst. This ability heals you for every monster you kill, which is perfect for an endless stream of monsters. Slow projectile. While this can have some cons with bosses who throw projectiles that bounce around the screen, I found that this ability was more helpful a majority of the time. Making every projectile attack slower in all levels will make it easier for you. In strong, dodge, and agility. As you get further in the game, you'll need the dodge chance where monsters and bosses start hitting you for a lot more than you're used to. HP plus, attack plus, crit plus, and speed plus. Endless Mode starts off with extremely weak monsters and bosses, so it's very easy to reach maximum stacks with the plus abilities. In my opinion, crit plus is the strongest. Dwarf. Increasing your crit chance and granting you a smaller hitbox, this will boost your survivability up by a lot. Attack boost and crit boost. Increase your damage where you can, and if you want to, over defense and health, because we are limited in how much damage we can gain due to the level max. Health boost. I find health boost extremely important in this mode. I would recommend getting it as often as you can over most of the abilities in ARCHERO. Health boost will basically be your currency in Endless Mode. The devil that appears after defeating bosses without taking damage will grant you a lot better abilities than the ones you may get randomly. I try to keep my health at a certain number, so I try not to go under maybe 8k health. But in the end, that means I can only take around 3 to 4 hits until I start nearing my max level reach. I tend to pick up attack boost, crit boost, multi, and front if offered, and I don't have any of them yet, and extra life. Walk through walls and walk through water are also very useful abilities. I would go for walk through walls over walk through water if you cannot afford both. Walk through walls really helps me in the tentacle mob stages. Then we have crit aura and speed aura, invincibility and wingman, attack speed boost for those who value attack speed. I do find attack speed boost a lot more stronger on weapons like the Sprite Spear, the Tornado, the Saw Blade, but if you're using like Death Scythe, then I don't find it as strong. In others, we have Headshot. This may be a personal one for me, but I find that this really helps me get rid of some monsters in the later game stages that start hitting very hard, especially if it one-shots a tentacle mob. It's a risk chance, but it is a high reward and can make things a lot easier by making less attacks in that level. Spirit Elemental abilities. This is mainly for the hero buffs. Spirit Poison and Freeze increase hero crit damage by 20%. Spirit Bolt increases your crit chance by 5%, and Spirit Blaze increases your attack by 10% according to the ARCHERO fandom wiki. Piercing, Bouncy Wall, and Diagonal Arrow combination. I would not recommend this combo for the Tornado, however this combo works very well on the Saw Blade, Brave Bow, Bright Spear, and Staff. Even though it is very strong on Staff, it can make it extremely hard to see, which may end up costing you. I personally do not try to build this on Staff because I cannot see anything, And you can also add side arrows and rear arrows to the mix to make it extremely crazy. Diagonal arrows. Even without bouncy wall, diagonal arrows is very beneficial to the tornado weapon and works great for the other weapons as well due to hitting multiple enemies. Grace and Strong Heart. Heals are very valuable in this game, from dropped red hearts to the Angel's Heal, although I am unsure if the dropped heals are affected by this. Bolt Arrow. It's basically a budget ricochet. I personally do not pick this up unless there is nothing else because its damage is very low and it does nothing for bosses due to no initial damage. Chilling Blast. This can help with crowd control as you start getting more mobs and splitting mobs in the later stages. It also really helps against melee mobs. Freeze abilities are preference to your playstyle. It can help with crowd control for those who use weapons with no knockback. Shield Guard. Can help absorb projectiles, or if you're good at controlling it, you can take some projectiles out. Sword Circle abilities. Can help against the splitting beam mobs / beam mobs in the later stages, or those splitting bats, I'm not sure what they're called, especially if you do not have any knockback. Abilities to avoid / situational. Giant. This ability is strong, don't get me wrong, but I still find it very situational. For Endless Mode, I would only suggest picking up Giant if you have Dwarf already, or you want to risk it and hope for Dwarf later. This will bring you back to normal size, and keep the stats. The problem with Giant is that it increases your hitbox. I've tested this ability multiple times. If you're just extremely good at dodging, then go for it, but for players like myself, who's just probably average at dodging, it does decrease your survivability rate. Meteor and Star abilities can make it very distracting, so I would avoid them. Death Nova and Death Bomb. Damage is just weak, and there are many other abilities that are better than these two. The Wizard also offers abilities that we're familiar with. I would say generally pick up all of them even if they are Star and Meteor abilities, unless you find them too distracting. Do keep in mind that there are some abilities you should avoid even if the Wizard offers it depending on what weapon you're using. Example, the Tornado should not take Piercing from the Wizard due to already having Pierce, or Giant without Dwarf. Another ability that would be viable in this mode is Smart, which is the ability that increases your XP gain and probably the most disliked ability, but only if they change this mode to endless XP for abilities. If not, ignore this ability. I'm just saying it right now in case they do change it in the future. Next, the abilities offered by the Wizard. I'm not sure if I've collected every single new ability offered yet, but I think I got most of them. I've refreshed this multiple times from the Wizard to make sure I get as many as possible. Other than that, there are abilities offered later in the game where they only last for 3 rooms. There is no point in not taking those abilities, so I will not be talking about them, and various other abilities where it will give you a reduction of something within 3 seconds after killing an enemy. Some of the abilities do not make sense, so I will try my best to interpret what they mean. I do feel that they need to explain or describe these abilities more specifically. I could not test these because I did not have enough runs to test every single one, so I will just go by what they say. So we have temporary crit rate and crit damage increase when hero appears, temporary attack speed increase when there's more enemies, temporary attack speed increase when hero appears, temporary attack increase when hero appears, temporary projectile damage reduction when there's more enemies. For the temporary abilities, I do not understand what it means by when hero appears. Maybe it means when we enter the room. I'm also not sure what determines more enemies in comparison to what. Then we have increased dodge rate. This one is valuable. I would not refresh this. I would take this one. Then we have increased attack speed, increased max HP, increased crit damage. For max HP and attack speed, and I'm sure there is an increased attack as well, it is your personal preference. I would personally not refresh it if you don't want to risk it because you might get something worse. Attack speed increase when enemy is defeated, attack speed increase when getting skill, attack extra increase when getting skill. I'm not sure if any of these stack, and these are straightforward as well. Same enemy's damage reduced 40% within 2 seconds. I'm not sure how this one works. Maybe when you hit a ground target and hit another ground target, the enemy will have reduced damage. Increase hero attack speed. Monster has slightly increased damage. Monster provides more XP, but slightly increased damage. I would refresh these ones personally. I do not think it's beneficial at all to increase the monster's damage, and XP becomes useless after max anyway. It's not worth increasing all monsters' damage for the rest of your run. Chance of explosion on enemy's death, dealing damage to hero. Refresh. From the wording, it seems that the enemy will explode and deal damage to us. I'm not sure if they meant that it would deal damage to enemies surrounding target like Death Bomb. Reduce projectile damage. I would take this one. Reduce collision damage. I would refresh this one. Unless you're using a weapon that has no knockback or no CC. Monster HP reduced, but reduce XP. I would take this one personally because I find that it's very easy in the first 100 anyway. Max HP, extra increase when getting skill. I would take this one. Crit rate increase when enemy is defeated. HP max increase when enemy is defeated. I would take these, not sure if it stacks. That's all the ones I found so far. If there are any that you know about, please let me know in the comments down below. Moving on to recommended heroes. All in all, always play the heroes you enjoy the most, whether they're the best or not for a particular mode. This is going by my experience. I've tested all heroes in this mode, and the heroes I would suggest avoiding are Shari, Bonnie, and Ursul. The strongest hero for this mode is Sylvan, Helix, and Magic. If you do not have Sylvan because you are free to play, I suggest using Furin or Tyrannus. I personally find Furin stronger than Tyrannus because Tyrannus' electric damage is pretty low and Ricochet paired up with Furin deals more damage, but it's personal preference, go with what you enjoy the most. You might be wondering what order. Because you have 3 heroes, you want to equip the hero you want to use first before you enter. There are a few strategies. If you have Sylvan, you could use Sylvan first. Using Sylvan will take out 4 abilities you do not want, and this means you'll most likely get higher tier abilities. Or you could use your weakest hero first. By doing so, you set up your strongest hero with maximum health for the strongest stages, where your weakest hero is more unlikely to survive. Or use your strongest hero first. This strategy is great for increased chance in devil drops for more abilities. If you're using a stronger hero, you're going to defeat the early bosses quicker, meaning less likely to take damage. And what I recommend avoiding using first is Helix. If you use Helix, the Rage ability will not drop. It is beneficial for your other 2 heroes to have Rage. Rage will not work on Helix because he already has built-in Rage, but it's better to have Helix with 1 less ability than 2 heroes with an extremely strong ability. And lastly, recommended gear. Again, totally your preference and playstyle. For this mode, I strongly recommend a dodge build. So 2 serpent rings and a vest of dexterity. Why I recommend a dodge build is because I find that endless mode is more about surviving. Eventually, you'll get to the point where enemies' damage is just way too much that you can't just crit or attack your way through it. This is why I find dodge way more valuable in this mode, but again, it's your personal preference. If you do not want to use dodge, then go for your general crit build or any build that you like to use. For lockets, I recommend Angel Locket, and for bracelets, I personally use Frozen Bracelet, but this can mess you up. I'm not sure if you'll experience the same stages as me, but there are 2 enemies who are less of a threat if they are working in sync. Frozen Bracelet will mess up that sync. I can take it, but it is risky. If you don't want to use Frozen Bracelet, I recommend Thunder Bracelet and then Blazing Bracelet. If you can't reach to the point where you have to deal with the Medusa and teleporting mobs, stick with Frozen Bracelet because it does help a lot with other mobs. For weapons, I've used every single weapon, and again, stick with what you love the most. I reached over level 100 with all the weapons, but the highest was with the scythe. This may be because I am a scythe main and I'm just more used to it. The staff is extremely strong, but it is hard to use when against the scythe mobs because you cannot see what's happening on your screen, and the scythe mob projectiles are very strong. The bow I find much more clean and strong here. The soul blade is good early, but I find that it falls off late. The bright spear and tornado I feel is so dependent on the abilities you get because the lack of knockback can screw you up later, but the tornado's piercing and return damage can help with the beam mobs. I'm not saying these 2 weapons are bad for this mode. I did reach my second highest with the bright spear, but I did get extremely good abilities. Death Scythe I find very strong in endless mode, but I have it on epic, where the headshot on low health is extremely useful. I cannot speak for how it is without its epic passive. The knockback is extremely helpful against the melee mobs though. The staff, however, does deal the highest damage and is extremely strong against the bosses. I did clear the rooms a lot faster with the staff than any other weapon with a diagonal arrow build. However, I did die earlier than the scythe build because I could not see anything on my screen, which was the issue that I had, but if you are good at dodging with the staff, then go for it. All in all, Endless Mode / Hero Adventure is a mode that rotates. It's a fun mode to experiment different builds, abilities, and weapons. I would suggest testing out different weapons because it does strongly depend on your playstyle. I know there are a lot of staff user mains who can do extremely well, despite it being distracting where I'm more focused on a clean screen. That is all for today's video. I hope this video has helped you. Let me know in the comments how far you got in Endless Mode. Subscribe and click the bell for more videos. I hope to see you again for the next one. Bye!